Wolfpack. Today I will be doing part 2 of a short series I'm doing on my channel where I talk about different types of dragons. If you haven't seen the last video I did, I will put the link in the description along with the last dragon video I did. But let's before I start the video, remember to like and subscribe to my channel. Also, follow me on everything and help me grow my wolf pack even bigger. But let's get into the video today. Today, we're going to be talking about more dragons, as I said. I've done a little bit more research into finding more and more dragons, and one of the most ancient dragons I can ever think of is a dragon that is from Norse mythology. If you haven't known about, everyone knows about Thor. Thor from Marvel is actually based on he is a god from a form of paganism, Norse paganism. He is a Norse god, but Ragnarok is pretty much the Norse pagan version of Doomsday. And during that, one of the monsters that comes to Earth to kill a bunch of humans is this giant ancient dragon, which I find interesting. This dragon is fucking huge, and it kills a bunch of the Norse gods and most of the humans actually too. But during that, it's this giant ancient dragon that Thor eventually kills, but also dies in the process of killing. And we're talking about Thor in the mythology, not Thor from Marvel, because he's technically still alive. But that's one of the many dragons I wanted to talk about today. Moving up next, we're going to be talking about another type of dragon that I found out about. And this dragon is super interesting because it's not like any other dragons I've found out about before. But essentially, it is the loner dragon because it likes to stay in solitary. It doesn't like to be with even near anything. No humans, no animals, unless it's feeding, obviously. It doesn't even like to be around its own kind. And that's because it's very territorial and it's well known for being a loner, as it's called, the loner dragon. And one of the things it does is if it does see another one of its dragons or anything else in its territory, it will fight it and kill it and probably even consume it sometimes. But as long as you don't disturb this dragon, you should be okay. As long as you don't disturb it or it's not hungry. Another dragon that's really interesting is what we're going to talk about is modern dragons, which are like water monitor lizards, and snakes, gators. They're all descendants of dragons, which I decided to throw in here for you guys. But yes, we all know, I'm not going to go into details about modern dragons, but I'm just going to say, that I'm just going to throw it in here for you guys. But let's move on to a fire dragon. Fire dragons are exactly what they sound like. Giant dragons that fly around, and not only that, however, these dragons normally live in places that are near fire or lava, and usually that means volcanoes or lava pits. And they not only breathe fire, but they are immune to all fire and lava, which is what some of their armor of their scales are made out of, is lava and fire. They can breathe fire, and their wings catch on fire if they choose it to be. But they also have an ice dragon, which is basically the opposite of the fire dragon, lives in ice and snowy places that are really cold, and they breathe out a gas that's similar to liquid nitrogen, which freezes you very instantly if you get hit long enough by it. And this one, its armor is its scales are like armor. It's super tough, and it's a very, very, very fast flying dragon. And they're well known for eating people and livestock. They're also known to freeze crops, so you'll get fucked up, and sometimes they freeze the roof of a house, climb up on top, and their long snout they use to bash the roof in and then eat people. Or depending on if it's like a house, sometimes they do it with cars. Sometimes, well, not cars like today, but you know, like fucking, sorry, but like sorry. Anyway, it's like these cars they had back then weren't even really cars. They were more like wagons that they would take horses and they would just pull it. So technically, back then they would call it a vehicle, I guess, but you know what I mean. But if they were around today, they would be doing it with cars because even though it's liquid nitrogen and cars are made out of metal, this gas that they breathe out will probably weaken the metal and be able to crush it. Uh, uh, Another dragon I want to talk about is what's known as the chameleon dragon. It is a giant dragon with no wings, but a very destructive tail and very destructive hands that can do a shit ton of damage. And the best part is they can blend into their surroundings. And they're well known for eating people, or meat in general. Really, sorry about that. Uh, But that's one of my most interesting dragons. And then I want to move on to one of the most interesting and fascinating dragons I've ever heard of, which is the panda dragon. No, it is not a hybrid of a panda bear and a dragon. This dragon is particularly a vegetarian, only eats plants, and is not really violent. It's actually a chubby dragon, but instead of scales, it has fur. And the reason it's considered a dragon is because it is a prehistoric like thing. This was back in the day. There were former dragons, and believe it or not, they were cold-blooded back then. I don't know when they died. I don't know how something can have hair and be cold-blooded, because mammals have hair and they should be warm-blooded. But they recently found one in what I guess used to be Antarctica, and this was back when Antarctica was not covered in ice. And then now that it is, they found it, and when they did some DNA tests, they realized it was cold-blooded, even though it had fur, and it's known as the panda dragon. They were able to backtrack its tendencies, such as food and its anger issues, which it was vegetarian, and it didn't really have a lot of anger that well. It was pretty adorable, actually. Their babies actually come out of the egg with very little hair, but eventually they get a lot more. And they love to sleep, and they love to live in fields. Like they lay in fields, unlike other dragons. There's another dragon we're going to move to, which is known as the slow dragon because, yet again, it has no wings, and it's very, very, very slow. Like, it doesn't move as fast because as these dragons grow older, they get slower. As younger they are, they get a little hyper, and once they get big, and keep in mind these slow dragons is what I call them, but they're also known as snail dragons because snails are really slow, and as they get older, they get slower because they're born really hyper, and then they get older and they move really slow. I don't know why, but they do. And they're reptiles, they're cold-blooded, their armor is really tough given the fact that they're very slow, and when they're hyper, they're a little more soft, so they're easier to kill when they're younger, and people back in the day would kill them when they were younger, and when their armor was soft, so they can make them into food, like soup, or meat pies, or something like that. Now, I want to move on to another interesting dragon, which is basically, it's a dragon, but it looks like a giant snake, and it flies, but it has no wings. Now, people believe that they had a type of gas in them that would act like helium, which would allow it to float, and its skin, all of it wasn't even that heavy. Like, it was a very light dragon, which allowed it to fly easy. And it was like a giant flying snake without wings. So essentially, it did that. It didn't really breathe any fire. It didn't breathe ice. It didn't breathe anything. It was just a dragon that would just float around and slither up in the air and eat cows. Surprisingly, it rarely ate humans, but it did eat a lot of cows and goats back in the day. They are now extinct, but they were alive a long time ago. Now we're going to talk about the dark matter dragon, which basically is this dragon that is black and is well known for having this gas that comes out of its ears and some of its skin, which is really weird. And when it's really hot, it actually catches on fire. But this fire is more like a purplish blackish color, and no one knows why, what the purpose is for this function of theirs, but they did. And it looked like a black purple dragon made of fire, and it was so cool looking, and that's why it was called the black matter dragon, because it looks like it's made from darkness, which I found interesting. It breathes out toxic gas and purple fire, I think. Yeah. This dragon was around for literally thousands of years, but went extinct, I think, in the 15th or 16th century. Which kind of sucks, because those dragons sound fucking awesome. And then the last dragon I want to talk about with y'all today is the undead dragon. The undead dragon, back in the day, people thought was a sign of the apocalypse, because these dragons, they die really easily. And what's interesting is that if you kill this dragon and you don't remove the head, their brain and heart restarts, but their brain only starts and gives them basic motor functions, and their skin and scales start to fall off, and they can still move. So basically they're zombie dragons, and that's why they're called the undead dragon, because they would come back. But they wouldn't come back forever. They would just come back for a day or two, and they would try to infect other dragons, and people would, if they would shit near you, that disease would go in you, and then you would breathe it in and you would die. You wouldn't come back, but you'd die because it's toxic to us. But it would be killing and reviving other dragons like that, in that fashion. Which is why back then when you saw those dragons, if they were rotten or not, you would put a mask or a cloth over your face so you wouldn't breathe it in. But thanks you guys for watching. Just gonna be ending my video of part 2 of dragons, different types of dragons. Please like and subscribe and follow me on everything. Thank you guys for watching. Bye.